Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. And just to check, Bharat, someone, can you just confirm you can see my screen? I'm just doing it. 1 second. Yeah, I just shared my screen. Can you just confirm?
Yes,
You can see it.
I
Yeah,
can see
you
it.
can see it.
Mhm.
Thank you. Um, so, in today's session, what we're going to discuss is more around, how do we leverage generative AI? That's one of, I'm sure, the whole world is buzzing with ChatGPT, OpenAI, and whatnot. And then, but at the same time, there are some underlying concepts, underlying technology, within generative AI and ChatGPT, and how we could leverage, or rather, we have a platform, which leverages that for business intelligence, or whether you want to call it business intelligence, data analytics, or data insights, right? I think that's what we're going to talk about today. Um, s- and just a quick introduction about our company. iLink Digital, and there is a family of companies within the within the iLink ecosystem. Each one of us, we specialize on a particular technology or competency, if you want to call it. So that way, I head the one related to conversational AI, and or anything to do with natural language processing, voice technologies, and all. And um, and I mean, even before the island journey, I've spent pretty much a significant portion of my career in Wall Street building technology for the bank. And pretty much most of my experience has been around data analytics, BI, data science, whatnot. And now, we've been focusing exclusively on conversational insights, and especially the particular topic, which we're going to talk about today around leveraging generative AI, for business intelligence, right? So that's what I just wanted to, what we call is, we are in a post-GPT world. I mean, in the sense there is a lot of excitement around this technology, what it can do, what it cannot. And then at the same time, definitely there is a lot of topic around, the influence of AI in anything we do. You have AIs creating images to videos to whatnot, but at the same time, there are some very, very legitimate, very good use cases, which we've been, even implementing for some of our customers, and we have a platform, which leverages this. That's what, we're going to talk about today. Right? So just, what I do today is, there is a quite a bit of demo I'll show, which is our platform solutions built on these platform, as well as I'll try to give a lot of context on what exactly where exactly this technology really fits in, and especially taking you through the generative AI, the concept. So if we take a step back, even generative AI, what exactly is conversational AI? We've been interacting with machines using the familiar, the interfaces, whether it's a keyboard, mouse, or whatnot, right? Touch interfaces and all that. But more and more, I think, the machines are getting better at understanding the language we speak, including, which is both voice as well as text format, which say for example, Alexa, Siri, all these are classic, examples of language interfaces where we have an ability to communicate with the devices in English, and the computer also responds back. I think that's the core idea behind it. So now generative AI kind of fits into this more on how the computer even responds back. So it's basically the definition. I've also given one, which Gartner provides. It's there are few underlying technologies within the generative AI ecosystem, whether it is the chat GPT, or what the another very popular term, I'm sure pretty many of you would have heard about it, the LLMs, the large language models. What are those? So at a very, very high level, I'm just trying to oversimplify this. Generative AI or chat GPT, basically they are very, very good at, they are a bunch of algorithms. They are, they're very good at producing technology. I mean, text as a response to the question we ask. So so basically they just very good at generating the text or the response, which they provide, right? I think how they do it is where, I mean, we're not going to get into too much of it, but today, we are going to focus more on how we leverage this more on the business intelligence space. But at the same time, it's more like when you have these large models trained on very, very large volume of data, and then, you ask a question, they kind of respond back very similar to how humans would respond. I think that's the core excitement. If you have used OpenAI, the chat interface, or even Bard, right? I think the the excitement is more around, how it is able to construct a response back. It is not just pointed answers. They can write a story. They can extract text. They can answer questions from very large documents, PDFs. I mean, to the extent that, now you can even ask them to even write code, whatnot. I think, all those kind of exciting use cases which people have been playing around with generative AI. So basically, the core tenet is around, how it is able to quote unquote generate a response, for the user prompts. Right? So with that, can we really, I mean, the problem which we are trying to solve is, if I have a data set like this, I mean, for simplicity's sake, I've just taken an Excel sheet here. But at the same time, this can be any large databases, billions of rows, whatnot, right? I mean, when we have a data set like this, within this can we have an application, to respond back, to answer questions, right? I think that's the application, which we specifically focus on. It's like, while we have the generative AI or the OpenAI based applications responding back from content, whether it is PDFs or whatever is available in the internet. I mean, it could be Wikipedia to what, right? If companies have a corpus of data like this, which are very, very sensitive, can we have a similar experience where can we have an application built on generative AI technologies respond back, analyze this data, and respond back to questions, right? I think that's the application, which I would show more today, as well as, I'll just explain on how, we even approach a problem like that, conversational insights powered by, generative AI, right? So even just before I even get into more details, let me just quickly show you what exactly I mean by that. I'm just going to quickly share my screen here. Just give me 1 second. Can you see my screen, Bharat? Can you see my mobile application?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So this is, in fact, what I just showed you, that Excel sheet of data, right? I mean, so I will explain more on what this application is in another bit, but just to set the context on, what I said is, can we have a generative AI application respond back, analyze a bunch of data, and then, respond back to questions, right? So in fact, I have so many different data sets here. I have picked one, around, the one which I just showed about, the data set on the Excel sheet, right? So I'm just going to ask a question, something like, hey, show me the incidents. Basically, that data is a whole bunch of customer complaints or customer issues reported. I mean, a mock data set from by different banks. So I just asked a question. 358 rows. Approximately. So show me the incidents by company, in say within California, right? So it just gives me the data. I mean, it not just give me the details, but at the same time, it also tells me, hey, there are close to 9,000 plus rows, and then, it has created a visualization for me. Right. So I can just now, basically this application is kind of analyzing, or rather, it has built a model around, the data set which I just showed, and it is able to respond back. Now, I can even continue the conversation like this. I can ask, hey, I have asked quite a bit of questions before, so I'm just going to use one of that. How about Texas? So since there was a context around, the previous question was in California, you can continue the conversation with with the previous context, right? So it's going to give you the list of complaints by different company, but this time, it's just 5,000 plus, because we asked a different state, in this case, it's Texas. This way, I mean, there is a whole bunch of data sets I have. I can even have another data set. This is basically a sales data set. I mean, which I have. So even here, I can just go and ask questions like, hey, there is something which I've just asked before. Show me a weekly trend of profit in copiers, and so any attribute within the data set, but it's just going to analyze that, and then it's not just responding back. I just said ask for a weekly trend, and then it's while providing the trend, as a visualization, it is also telling me, hey, this is the average profit, and then how much it has gone up or gone down. There is a quite a bit of insights, it is giving, and it is also suggesting me a few things. Hey, you asked for a weekly trend, would you like to see a daily trend instead, right? So all these are a bunch of additional features, which it is just helping me, right? So I thought I'll just start with an example like this, right? So it's basically when you have a data set, right? I mean, I'm sure many of you who would have worked on big BI applications, you can produce a report, you can produce a dashboard and all. Similarly, can we just similar to how we use OpenAI or Bard, to ask questions? Can we really use an interface like that, I mean, to ask questions on the data set? That's pretty much what our application. In fact, this platform is called Kia. I'll talk more about it, in the subsequent slides. But at a very, very high level, that's all it does. It analyzes a whole bunch of data set, however large it is. We have implementations, which goes, I mean, like hundreds of millions of rows. And then, it can analyze those data and then, respond back to questions like whatever I just showed you here, right? So that's the whole, I mean, I thought I'll just start with a simple context like this on what this, what are we really talking about, right? So this data set can be anything. Absolutely, any measures and dimensions, any kind of structured, unstructured data. And this interface kind of analyzes it, and then, it just responds back to completely dynamic set of questions. You're only limited by the questions, none of the questions are pre-generated or the responses. All these responses happen at runtime, and then, based on what you're really asking for. If you're asking for a number or a visual, it is going to respond back. I think that's what this application kind of does. So now with that context, let me just head back to the slides, right? So that, in fact, that's pretty much what we're going to talk about today, leveraging generative AI, how we are using ChatGPT or a Bard interface to say you can go and ask ChatGPT, hey, can you give me a set of numbers, which are prime and then within less than 100, all these kind of questions. It is going to respond back, right? How does it respond back? It has been pre-trained with a very, very large corpus of data. Similarly, even here, we have our own custom LLMs, which is trained on this data set. And then, that's where it just responds back with these answers and visuals and all that, right? So how exactly are they different from, the common chatbots we have today? I mean, most of the chatbots which have been there for ages, I think, these were all very good at answering some predefined set of questions. And then, the responses were also canned and all that. But the key difference here, with generative AI, is the way it is able to quote unquote generate, or the way the response is generated. It's more extremely, you can have any kind of free format question, and then it is going to respond back more human-like, right? I think that's pretty much what it does. So how can we really leverage a similar technology for business intelligence? I think that's pretty much what we're going to talk about today, right? So Why are we even doing this? See, in fact, I just want to set some context to address the problem space and why we think this could be the next, stage of business intelligence, as we move from reports, dashboards to scorecards, whatnot, the way we have consumed data so far. Can we really get into more of a question and mode, answer mode, right? So even when we are looking at a metric or a chart, right, I think there is a question we have in our mind. I think that's pretty much what we are trying to get an answer to. I mean, I've given examples like this. Hey, if you have launched a new website and then you're really concerned about the adoption, the question naturally which comes into your mind is, hey, how are people using my website? How many users? Where do people spend most of the time on? What channel do these users in a particular segment use? We try to get answers for these questions, even from a metric. I think that's pretty much what we're really doing instead. So now what we're really saying is, while we have these questions in mind, why don't we just let the users ask those questions in an interface very similar to what I just showed you, in the mobile interface. In fact, the same application is also available in web and all. I'll just show the web application version as well, right? But the idea is, why don't we just let the users ask these questions, and why can't this be another tool set or another new way of doing business intelligence, right? I think that's pretty much what our solution really kind of attempts to solve, right? So why is this even important? I think I just want to set some context in terms of, I mean, I think despite all the investments companies make, with the data analytics, BI world and all, I think information still finding quick access to information is still a challenge. I think whether it is the search interfaces or any of the BI dashboards and reports, I think the users, typical business users, do spend a significant amount of time looking for information, right? The other thing is also about, as large enterprises become more and more digital, I mean, what is called as the big data fallacy. As we start accumulating very, very large volume of data, the one which is very, very useful in this particular example, it's the picture, it is that red dot. I think that is what is really useful. It's locating that piece of information which is of interest to me, and this piece of information is different to a different set of users, right? So I think that's pretty much what most of the big data problems happens to be, right? How do we really get that piece of useful information out of the very large volume of data I have? How do we make that simple, right? And and also, I think this is a very famous graphic, I mean, which I liked it. It came in one of the HBR studies, right? Anything we do in life, today, if you take the personal life, I think things are becoming extremely fast, whether you can hail a cab in a few minutes, the amount of time it's the shipping time has reduced a lot. But if everything else is becoming so fast, why should getting access to information? In fact, uh, all the information needs for our personal needs. I mean, right? Today, we just invariably go to Google or any of the popular search engine we use, and that's where we go and ask, right? Why can't a similar experience be created even for enterprise data, right? I mean, rather than looking for, even if we are asking for a specific metric or a report, why should that be, I mean, there can only be so much amount of predefined reports and dashboards. Why can't people have the similar experience of something similar to asking Google? Why can't we have something like that even for our enterprise data need, right? I think that's the driver behind it. More and more companies are saying, as they start accumulating a lot amount of data, making this data easily available, or rather putting it in front of users, is what is really going to make it that much more useful, right? So what we're really trying to do is solve as this problem. How do we make enterprise data easily available? Of course, the last line is also extremely important, in a secure way. Um, Whether it is the privacy concerns, everybody has access to certain amount of data. How do we really make it, while we simplify the access, how do we also make it extremely secure so that users get to see what they have entitled to see, right? Contrast this need, to what we have today, right? I think, what this is a very, very common problem, or rather, which is anybody who has worked on the BI data warehouse space, would be very much familiar. What we call as death by metrics. There is way too many metrics, dashboards, and KPIs, scorecards, in any large organization, especially. As many data users are there, you end up creating as many dashboards, and what was supposed to be a self-service BI has really not lived up to it. I think, it still takes a good amount of time, for someone to produce a new dashboard or even add a new metric and all that. Right? The information access is still too technical. I mean, just contrast this to the example I just showed you, or the mobile application I showed you. It should be as simple as just asking a question in English, right? Rather than someone writing a code, clicking on user interfaces, menu options, and then, or rather even analyzing a spreadsheet. I mean, when I have the data like this, right? I can do, even if I have to do a pivot table or create a chart out of it, that takes good amount of time. Rather, why can't we just let the user ask a question, right? I think that's pretty much, what we really making it like completely non-technical. Can we really simplify it just like how we are using the search engines of today, for any other information access? And this is a very, very common problem, in very, especially large enterprises. I think there is a lot of delays in the access to information and hence decision making. If you have a bunch of, say, 5 to 10 KPIs, and if there is one additional KPI that is required, there is always, it becomes a project. Someone has to source the data, build that metric, add it to the dashboard, make it available. I think this kind of this cycle really takes a good amount of time. I think, it's extremely painful in many cases, right? And in fact, I would even call this almost like the infinite loop of data and BI projects. I need every new piece of information really becomes, a project, right? I think rather, if I have a data set like this and, why can't we just let users slice and dice, do a trend or anything they want? Why can't, I mean, I'm just going back to this disclaimer. It's only an Excel sheet for simplicity's sake. I'm showing this, but it can be any large data warehouse or any, data infrastructure you might have. If we expose that and then, let users just ask questions, why can't we have an interface like that rather than, the need to write code to produce a new metric every time, right? And this is also something, I think the operational overheads are eating away, I mean, good amount of time. I think most of the data analysts or the data users are supposed to use this data and then, use it to take actions or decision making. Instead, I think a significant amount of time is still spent in the data preparation layer, creating the visualization, making it available. I think that's where there is a good amount of even the IT budget is also going in, right? How can we really make that more productive or make, create cost savings out of this, right? So in summary, these are the typical, or rather what I would call it is the familiar scenes in the BI world today, right? I think analytic efforts take forever, it costs more. The second one is extremely, anybody who has worked on the BI space would know it's just too many dashboards and metrics. I think the dashboards need to be reimagined. Is there a way, we could do that in a different way, right? I mean, I'm not saying dashboards don't serve a purpose. Absolutely, they do have a place. But as more and more users consume data within an enterprise, is there a better way? Is there a simpler way of making the data available other than the metrics and dashboards, right? Metadata is, again, it's a very, very challenging issue. I mean, it's the data about the data. In fact, I'll show you an example of it very soon. It's not just, it also, when we talk about metadata, it is also to do with the data catalog, the business glossary, the business terms, the way you map a technical term to and give it a business context, how the business users would refer to it and all. There is this conflict. And right, how do we simplify it? How do we even let the business users access the data in the terms they are familiar with, right? And the last one, I think self-service BI, which was supposed to be help the business users get access in a very, very swift manner. I think it has not really lived up to its purpose. I think it is still requires a lot amount of technical work, which delays the whole self-service BI part, right? So the modern information challenge, if you really look at it, it's not just about the capture and store. I think the technology around your ability to capture high velocity, high volume data has matured a lot. I think even the unit cost of storage has come down drastically. So companies are able to invest significantly, or rather, innovate heavily around capturing and storage. It's more around making that data useful and making it available for users. I think that's where a lot of companies are still struggling, or rather, the most of the interesting problems are going to be on making it accessible, right? There is also another concept, which is very, very important within the data world. It's what we call as the findability and discover. What exactly do I mean by that? I've just given an example. If you are really looking at a specific metric, say for example, how many critical vulnerabilities do we have, right? So there is a number which gives you the answer, comes out as an answer. Hey, there are 27 vulnerabilities, right? But there is also this hidden part of it, the insight, which would make that answer a lot more useful. By the way, do you know that 90% of it is in this particular device? Or I can have a question like, hey, what is my sales last quarter? It can be $100,000. By the way, do you know that 90% of the sales is particular the region, and this region, which was supposed to do well, is not? I think those kind of insights, which are kind of hidden or latent, that's what makes that information that much more useful, right? So how do we make the BI, or rather, the new way of BI? How do we really make or provide the users with a lot more insights like this? That's what, even in the mobile application, the demo I just showed you, it's not just about answering the question. It is also about, by the way, hey, this is really 30% of it, and this has really gone down by 15%. Can we really surprise a user with some hidden insights which would make that piece of information that much more useful? And this is also a very, it's a very famous diagram around, knowledge. As if you really take the whole square as something, which we do not know, right? It's around the data. As we move from the blue circle, which is what we know, and with getting answers as we become more knowledgeable, the true power of any answer is to help you raise more questions, right? I think, if you really look at the small orange circles around it, any question or any answer which you really get, it has to be, the success of that answer is in its ability to raise more questions and than answers, right? Basically, it's just it has to improve your curiosity level, right? So as we are becoming more knowledgeable, moving from the less knowledge part to the more knowledgeable, as we move even from a data set, you really would have more questions than answers, right? So now any tool you may have, it has to help you support this, right? I think this is where the dashboards kind of and reports kind of hit a roadblock, in the sense when I have, I'm just slicing and dicing, I'm just applying a filter, looking at the data. Now, boom, say I have something, my data is there for 6 months. I just want to see the month, just before this. Damn, I don't have this data. That's where, you hit a roadblock. In the sense, then it becomes a project. You ask somebody to add the data, then, they have to change the metric, change the filter. Now, so it becomes a project. Rather, as we get more answers, if the tool is able to, help you provide answers to the newer questions you have, then it becomes a lot more product. That's exactly one of the primary driver around why we feel a generative AI based Q&A kind of interface would really, really make it that much more useful for your data sets, right? So this is what we really mean by the surprises. Hey, how can this tool really help you with answering questions like, hey, that's interesting moments, which you really didn't know that existed, right? So how do we really make this happen? Can we really have the users just ask, right? So here are a few examples. These are again, examples from some of our customer implementations on how they're using it. can we really let them ask these questions in English, right? Rather than applying different filters in a dashboards and all. I mean, in fact, a very, very common use case, for one of our healthcare implementations, it's the fourth question. Hey, can we really show me the pets treated on influenza and prescribe this particular drug, in this particular region? The doctors kind of just ask this question in English, right? Um, I think this kind of interface, I mean, that there is also one, interesting code I thought I'll put it here. I think Gartner, there are studies which says, I think users are getting more and more comfortable or, with search interfaces and especially, asking questions in English. I think that's one of the primary drivers and why we are also saying, hey, the next generation of BI applications could be something very similar to what I just showed, where you just have a very simple search bar and just let the users ask questions in English, and then it is going to respond back. Right, very similar to how a ChatGPT or Bard interface kind of responds back. Right. Another example here is, say if this is a question you have a dashboard like this, right? Um, Overall IT cost management dashboard. If the question you have in mind, hey, where are we really spending the most? Definitely there is a good amount of cognitive overload where unless you are someone who's been looking at this dashboard every day, there is an effort involved to try to get that answer, right? Rather, can I just, if we are talking to a knowledgeable individual, I think we just ask the question to them, hey, how much did we spend last month? And then if that person knows the information, he's just going to respond back, right? Similarly, can we really have a chat like interface? I mean, the one, again, going back, what I really showed in the mobile application. Can we let the user just ask this question and then, the interface would just provide the answer as well as also, I mean, when I say provide the answer, both in text, voice, as well as visuals, and also can it really tell them, by the way, this is why it is like this, those unknown, the surprising insights, which would make that information that much more useful. Can we really let the use application do that? I think that's what we really mean by a generative AI based conversational application, right? So this is our platform. In fact, Kia is our platform. That's a tagline. We call it as talk to your data. That's what I showed in the mobile app. That's what it does. How does it do? So I mean, you have an interface like this. Let me quickly jump into the mobile application. So it's like this. Just So yeah, I can go and pick any data set I want, and then so say for example, let me pick the one which I just used, the sales data, and I can ask a question. I mean that is, can you show me the weekly? I mean the same question I asked, there. It's just going to respond back with the answer. Just So, I mean, instead of the weekly trend, I really want a daily trend, right? I think instead of clicking on any user control, can I really change this instead of the best region? Now I'm just looking at the East region. In say it's not just this year. I mean, I just want I can just ask this question in English and then, it is just going to respond back. Right. And that's the whole idea behind this. I mean, it's not just the response. And so I have the underlying data behind, and then there is quite a bit of insights it has. Right. So that's the whole idea behind it. When you have a whole bunch of data sets, I mean, see, in fact, this is the one which, we have in this Excel sheet. Right. So in this interface, I can just ask, hey, the one where I just asked, what percentage of incidents in California is related to mortgage? So now, since it's a language interface, it says, hey, what, mortgage, I have it as a product, as a product. What do you really mean? I said, as a product, it says 29.5%. So there are this many issues. These are the data I have, which is what you see here, right? it just responds back. There is absolutely no code. I mean, nothing is, you don't have to write, for any kind of questions, you might ask here, right? I think that's the idea behind this. It's like nobody is really writing. All these are not just predefined questions. You are only limited by the attributes here. So there is a whole bunch of attributes, I mean, the numbers, categories, and all that. As a combination of this, this can even be how complex, your schema is, a number of tables, any attributes, you can ask, and then, it's just going to respond back, as an answer to your question, right? So that's the whole idea. I mean, when can we really provide a very simple search interface and let the users, just ask questions, whatever questions they may have on this data, right? So here is just a simple definition of this platform. It is almost like we call it as a virtual data analyst. What Kia really does is helps you get instant answers and more, for the questions you have. Just like how we would converse with a friend. I mean, we really feel, I think, it's the business intelligence reimagined, with the power of generative AI, right? Um, so what it really does is whenever, I mean, it's very simple. When the user has certain information need, it just, you can let them, just like how they might ask someone, they can ask Kia, just like the chat interface, whether it is a mobile application or the search interface I just showed you, and then, you can use that information. And there is quite a bit of stuff, you can show, you can do with the response. I'll just show a few more examples very soon, right? Or basically, when you have a very, very large data set, again, going back to this example, something like this, how do you convert that into answers, which the users can ask? That's the low-code platform. So it's very simple steps. I mean, we have a low-code platform which lets you do that. It can connect to all popular database systems available. I've just given a few logos here, but absolutely, most of the popular databases, data warehouses are supported. I mean, including Snowflake to whatnot, and completely on the cloud. Vendor cloud neutral, whether it is Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, and I mean, Kia kind of, we build a model around, your data set, and then you can interact with it to get a response back. So very simple steps, connect to any data source. And I mean, definitely by data, it can be streams for real-time data, it can listen to a Kafka topic or batch. You can schedule the data loads, anything like that. And then, and it can be in files, databases, so, even access another application through APIs. And then this is a very important step. I'll just show an example also for this, right? For a language interface, vocabulary is very, very important. Somebody might, since it's like, you may have a data attribute called sales or a product underscore name, but you can define synonyms saying, hey, this is like, this is product and item. So let me just go back to this example, right? So I have, let me pick a data set here. So the sales data set. So here you can see, so you see this, the ship mode, it is also called a shipping mode, or, so it's like the city's location. I can ask a question or something like this. So now, it's just going to respond back, just breaks it down. I can also create this by, okay, since location is defined as a synonym, the response is the same. That's pretty much, that's what, you saw here. So for this, so you can see that, for this data attribute city, it is also called as, we have defined synonyms, location and place. So this kind of helps you solve the problem around, business data glossaries and all that, the business term. You can make your data set, I mean, if you take most of your data attributes and schemas, I mean, they all kind of technical names, which makes it very difficult for the business users, I mean, with the underscores and all that. Now, with this, a language interface like this, you can define vocabulary, you can make it extremely, very make the business users very much familiar with these terms, and then define those vocabulary, and Kia understands, hey, when they say city and location, they mean the same. And then, so it's um, it kind of it helps in the natural language understanding process, and then it just responds back, right? So this is a very, very important problem, within the data management space, which a platform kind of helps you solve, right? And the answers, I mean, made simple in the sense, you can see there is a whole bunch of pointer answers, and then, hey, we are talking about sales. So this is a sales in California, and then it is also, you have asked it to break it down by location, so there is a visual. And also, you have these underlying data underneath, all these stuff. It's for that particular answer, Kia kind of response back. I already showed you the mobile interface as well, right? There is another very important stuff, it's like around this actionable insights, right? So let me show what this is, right? So by the way, there are a few interfaces. I mean, the mobile application, the search interface, and then, we also have something called this, a chat interface. So if I go here, see, in fact, this is, let me go back and pick this data set on sales. So I mean, the interface looks very similar to Slack or a Teams, just like how you would chat with a friend, you can ask the question I just asked there, in the other interface. So I'm just asking that. So you have an inbox where it has a history of all the questions you asked. You can make them as favorite. You can attach a tag, and then, you can tag them for reference, something like so the next time, you can always search by tag and all that, right? So once you have an information like this, there is this important thing. Okay, what do you really do with this? So sometimes, most of the time, what we may want someone, hey, this doesn't look good. I really want to have someone take a look at this, right? So what you can do here, you can bring in somebody else. I just asked Matthew. Now, I can invite Matthew for the discussion here, and both of us, so this information is there. So it's like the conversation is not lost, no screenshots, sharing it in email back and forth, right? Both of us now, Matthew can also, since he's invited to this conversation thread, he can also ask this question, and then we engage in a conversation, right? Or there is, you can do a lot more. Say for example, I just want to say Matt, instead of inviting Matthew here, I can send it to him in Teams, right? I can say for example, for me, I'm just sending it to myself. So this will land in my Teams. And then, let me just show you this. So you can just see this. This is my, I just sent it to me in Teams. So this particular one, it can just land in your Teams record. So it is almost like you can make it available as a bot in Teams, Slack, or anything, right? So, or you can do, there is a whole bunch of integrations you can do. Say for example, you can create a task in Notion, any application which you can integrate, with APIs. We use Notion, so you can create a task and post it in Notion, or you can integrate with all kinds of CRM tools available. Absolutely, any application which is you can access through APIs, you can integrate it. Or say for example, this particular one, hey, if this is more like oh, I don't have data for last week, say. If this is something I do on a regular basis, I just look at this data, whether it is for last week or any particular time frame or any condition, right? I can schedule this as a report and then have it, I can pick a schedule, I can get it delivered to some, either myself or somebody else to look at it. all these kind of stuff. Basically, what we're really trying to do here is, I'm sure, I mean, enterprises have ton load of reports, each one of them created for a specific purpose. Why can't we just, even the whole report generation process, why can't we just convert that, as a question, and then, let people ask that question. If they really like it, let them schedule it and then get the data delivered. Whenever I say this, one common theme, which goes without saying, it's around data security. There is a whole bunch of role-based access control module, which runs, within Kia. You have an ability to obfuscate PII data, define data governance rule on who can see what, all of that. I mean, there are modules which take care of it. So I just wanted to, it's not just about making the data access simple, but making the data access simple as well as in a very, very secure fashion, right? So there is one more thing which I just wanted to show you. So when you have data like this, right? I mean, it also provides a whole bunch of insights. Say it's I can ask, hey, what are some of those contributing factors? For that sales in 2019, now, it just tells me, by the way, started this particular ship mode is the one, which contributes a lot this particular segment. There is a whole bunch of insights, it kind of tells you. If I ask questions like, hey, so I ask a question like this, hey, show me the daily trend on something, right? So since we're talking about, so you can also ask it to do a forecast. It's the purple one is the forecast. All these kind of stuff, the insights and all, all of this comes out of the box. I mean, think about there is no need to write code for any of this. You're just limited by the questions you have, right? I think that's the whole power of this interface. So as I said, the last step is, it's not just about getting answers. How do you really make it useful, and then let the people use it to make decisions or take actions, right? And all in one place. Absolutely, this is completely cloud neutral. Either we can host it, we have a secure cloud platform, or most of our enterprise installations are like this, where we take a software, it runs within your firewall. It is completely Dockerized, the container, we just come and deploy it. So most of our enterprise installations are like that. It's very closer to your data warehouse environment. All we have to do is do this initial setup around, database connections, defining the vocabulary, and that's it. I think the application is what you see here is completely white labeled. Kia, most of our, I mean, the customers use it in with their own name, branding and names. It is either called Twinkle, Oscar, Ginger, Erica, whatnot. I think that's the way they refer it. It is completely white labeled application. It runs within your firewall, so that way, not a byte of data goes out, right? Or, I mean, at the same time, we do have a lot of smaller installations where, we do provide this as a SaaS. It's a hosted solution, completely cloud neutral, runs on any of the popular vendor cloud platforms. So I just showed you, the different. So Kia Studio is more of the low code platform, which lets you get it. But I showed you the mobile application, the chat interface, the search interface, and all that. So it is truly omni-channel. The questions are shared, you can do that on any platform, and then it's available. The another thing is, right, I mean, the answers you see here, if you really want to embed this within any other application, even that is possible, right? So instead of using this application, if this portion of it, you can even just access it as an API. You have some other enterprise application where, you just want to use Kia for the reporting or the question part alone. Even that can be done. It's completely, you can access it through an API. That way, you can integrate it within any other application. So, as I said, these are some highlight the features we have. It's complete. It's powered by a low-code framework. The most important part is the ability to ask questions in English, and then where it can respond back. Very similar to, as I said, that's why I always use this and all. Hey, the way if you've been using OpenAI and ChatGPT, how you would ask ChatGPT or Bard, questions here, Kia kind of does something very similar on your data set. So when we say OpenAI, and I mean, absolutely nothing goes out, right? I think, it is your own models, it sits within your firewall. Nothing, we don't leverage any of the OpenAI. It is our own generative AI models. That's what we use. And again, not even a byte, goes to the OpenAI or any of the, publicly available AI models or cloud, right? So where this low-code framework really helps, it's very, very simple. It's that time to market. Absolutely, you really are saving a lot by not having to write code for each one of these metrics. So it's as the users ask those questions, so it's just Kia kind of just responds back. The biggest savings is around, I mean, the time to market, right? Again, since we are talking about data, this is a very, very important slide. I always highlight the application is completely built around, secure by design. It's including our code to it can connect to any of your IAM methods, whether it is auth, SAML, we can integrate with your IAM methods. There is a generic role-based access control module, which lets you govern the data access. It can use AD groups and all that, and you have an ability to define certain attributes as PII. Let me just give an example. So when for this particular data set, if I go here, so you can see that there is an attribute called, sensitive. If you mark any particular information as sensitive, that would be obfuscated. It will not be shown in any of the query responses and all that, right? So, and you can also have rules, workflows in terms of if you want to selectively enable it for few people, you can do that and all that. So it's explainable AI. It kind of tells you how it really understood the question, so how it even responded back. So there is transparency on, even the way Kia understands your question, and then, so how it even responded back. Right? So use case teams where, I mean, just few, themes in terms of how some of our installations or some of our customers have been using it, right? Definitely more as I said, simplifying BI or simplifying information access. I think it's a very simple search interface or a mobile application, just like how we would use a messaging device today, or even in Teams, where we have all the other collaboration. Kia could be made available as a team spot. So without getting outside team, somebody can just ask these questions, right? The hands-free mode is something, which we have seen many of our customers used, especially doctors. If the hands are, or in the factory floor, if they're wearing gloves, instead of them using the keyboard and mouse, they just use the voice interface. The application is available in an iPad device, and then, they just talk to the device using the voice interface, right? The other thing is also, as a reporting, I mean, instead of custom crafting, so, I mean, especially legacy organizations have hundreds of these reports. This provides a nicer way to reimagine those, just let each one of those reports for whatever filter conditions, time frame, all of that could be converted as questions which users can ask. Right? Um, so it's I mean a little more detail in terms of what each one of the simplified access. I showed you the search interface, the mobile application, the collaboration platform. I just showed the example around actionable. How do you really integrate it, take it to the next level? There is again our low-code platform kind of takes care of this reverse ETL. Taking your response back, integrating it with your downstream business applications. So say if let me show you one example. Say I have, so this is another mock data for one of our, projects, right? So see, I'm going to ask questions on, hey, show me the customers, so it's like, there is a, so for this particular one, if I really want to run a campaign around it, right, I can integrate it with my CRM application, and then, so it can be anything, it can be Salesforce or any of those applications, I can just take it to the next level where I map these output, whatever I have, I can just integrate it within the downstream business application that kind of completes the BI cycle, making your, the data insights actionable, right? On-demand reports delivery, I told you about, how the questions could be converted, and, as reports, and, you have an ability to schedule it, encrypt it, deliver it on a specific time to specific users in specific formats and all that, right? Quite a bit of happy customers. I mean, we have some very, very good, partnerships on these, particular application for a very long time. There is a lot more excitement, in many of the customers, especially generative AI and chat GPT has kind of, I would say, again, rekindled the interest around this. Hey, can I replicate a similar experience like OpenAI or ChatGPT on data in a very secure manner? That's what our platform kind of provides, right? But at the same time, I think I mean, anybody who has worked in OpenAI and ChatGPT, you should know the OpenAI models tend to hallucinate. I think that's a very, very important factor we need to remember because these are all stochastic models. But that's precisely what we are trying to solve with a platform like this. When we ask data questions on data, it has to be 100% accurate. That's where uh, we leverage a similar concept, but we don't leverage the OpenAI models, to provide these answers. These answers have to be 100% accurate. That's the power of data analytics or data insights, right? There's no way I can say, hey, we may have 100 defects last month. No, it has to be 100 defects or 101 defects, right? But so when for the answers it produces, definitely, it is the quality of data, and then I think it's extremely important. It depends on the quality of data. If the data is correct, definitely, the answers are correct as well. So bottom line, how does it really help? It's, I mean, at a very high level, three areas: changing BI needs. More and more users want simple and instant access to data, right? I think whether you're in a meeting, you're meeting a customer, you are in the airport, can I, instead of using any of those traditional BI platforms, the way I would call somebody, can I ask a similar experience, on my mobile phone? I think that's pretty much what we're really trying to do. And a complete information platform. Whatever I really mean by that, it's the way, you can collaborate, the way you can take actions, all of that. Definitely around, the bottom line gains around, how do we reduce the total cost of optimization today? Companies invest a good amount of data, I mean, good amount of time and effort in building warehouses. How do we really make that useful? With a very simple low-code platform instead of creating projects after projects, where we produce so many metrics and dashboards, right? So that's a summary of our application here. It's simple conversational interface with an ability to ask questions in English, responses in multimodal, and then definitely the fourth one is very, very important around security and privacy. It's how it handles, how it provides various ways to take care of security. So that's a summary. I mean, just bang on time, 11:30. So I know it was a very, very high level overview. If you really want to know more about the technology, there is only so much I could cover in an hour. If you really need a deep dive, or if you want to start on a free POCs, there are so many different ways in which we could engage with you. So please do reach out to us. Definitely, if you're interested to know more about the technology and all, we can even have a follow-up and do a deep dive, right? Thank you. Any questions, you can ask me now, or if there are anything in chat, but do let me know.
Yeah, we have two questions so far.
Sure.
How does it handle abnormalities, missing or anomalies in the data set?
So, in fact, as I said, definitely the response is a function of the data quality, the anomalies, whatever we're just talking about, right? What it really does is, say, even in examples like this, say, let me go back to another data set, say this one, right? So when I ask, hey, let me, so yeah, let's take this particular one. Hey, show me the daily trend of something, right? If I go to insights, it does provide some metric around, data quality, or we kind of tell the users. In fact, this is a very good example where, all the data sets of data values are valued. There are only zero count, blank count. I mean, there are so many things, we kind of, it provides them insights around the quality of the data. But at the same time, There is very little the read application like here can do. It's a more of a function of the data contributor or the provider. It can, what we're really trying to do here is, at least when we get an answer, at least let's just provide some indication on the data quality. That's what we're trying to provide here, and the insights by providing some information around data quality. In fact, this particular data set, there is another, say for there is a, if you take, these are all attributes, right? Every attribute has data profiling information on how many of them are blank, or how many of them, even say, since we talked about anomalies and all that, let's go and look at this particular one. It gives you a distribution of how it ranges. There is a whole bunch of metrics around, it profiling this. You can even ask these questions here. Hey, uh, I can ask this question, so it's just going to respond back saying, hey, profit. There are so many different values. This is the minimum value, maximum, all these kind of different metrics. It'll respond back. It'll analyze the data and then, just respond back. So the long answer short, Kia cannot do anything about anomalies. It can just make the issues surface the real data, and then, that's all it can do. What is the second question, bro?
Yeah. If Kia can be connected to any database, could it be used within the data lakehouse and used
Absolutely.
complementary with already created data sets on it?
Absolutely. In fact, that's how most some of our, I would say not most, some of our installations are like that. I think the customers already have an investment made in data lake. So if you say, for example, if you are using Power BI or Tableau or anything for your dashboards, they also bring this in. This is like extension or another way of consuming data. So it just connects to your lake house, and then it just sits there and runs on top of it, just like how your Power BI or a Tableau dashboard might be reading those, the same table, same schema. Kia can also read and provide the data in a different way, just as a language interface, right? So it can definitely, that is the intent of Kia as well.
We have no further questions for now, Shiva.
Okay. Maybe a couple of more minutes. Any other questions, please post it in the chat. And then, or as I said, definitely, please reach out to us. And then, we can always do a follow-up. I mean, definitely, we do engage with our customers through at least more like a taste test. We start with a free POCs or a technical deep dive. So this coordinates. So please do reach out to us. And I hope it was useful. If there are no questions, we can call it a day. Thank you. Thanks for your time. I hope it was useful. The 60 minutes was useful to learn something on. I think generative AI is really going to change the way, I mean, it's not, leave alone the creative part around, creating images, movies and all, but at the same time, it does provide significant uptick in terms of information access, content access and all that. So that way we also see this application as one of the significant possibilities, because companies do have very, very large volume of data these days. Every digital transformation efforts results in so much amount of data. How do we really make it accessible, right? I think that's what we are trying to do here. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day or evening, wherever you are, and thanks for your time.